Hello, hello.
Halo, halo.
Is that my voice? Oh, ah, sounds flamboyant.
Tadi awalnya kayak gini kan. Terus kan dia jatuh terus kayak taruh kayak malam.
Okay.
Bentar. Oh, kalau kamu ngecilin masih ada suara nggak? Iya tuh.
Mending kamu pasang headset and then just biarin aja kayak gitu.
Iya, takutnya.
So while we're waiting,
Let's start a podcast. Do you guys believe Earth is flat? I believe it's donut.
there's actually
I know ayam kan. Nah, tenang.
Banyak itu lah.
Sudah itu
I believe that the earth is a simulation.
I know we're gonna wake up. Aku kira kita bangun dari VR, kita kayak welcome to the world. Oh, selama ini hanya apa kita. Dari
Sama yang tidur. Ini cuma rewinding aku dari ambang mati. So jangan aku di mental hospital and this isn't real. It's giving me life.
Udah.
hello. I'm still heard. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically the left. The left politics is basically they want equality, and they will do their best to fight for that equality, either by taking down the current governmental system, by creating a lot of changes, or uh, or yeah, or basically they're going to do a lot of other kinds of policies. Specifically in English, it would be called affirmative actions, and in Bahasa Indonesia would be afirmasi, maybe, right? I will explain that a little later. Okay, so yeah, basically what they want is basically that, and they want to fight for equality in the status quo, equal rights, equal opportunities, and so on. The right wing is basically all about conservatives. They are the ones that want to maintain the status quo. They do not want change. And the reason why is that they don't want change is because their main value is freedom. And so basically, their argument is that anything that you have right now is based on your own hard work. Therefore, you have complete rights over it. That's their main economical policy and also their own way of life. They really value freedom, and they value they value that you have the rights over everything that you have at the moment, and the government should not be in control of whatever is in the whatever you have at the moment, kayak gitu. So that's basically what their main value is. It's all about the freedom, right? And the reason why the conservatives are necessarily still a very popular kind of party is that freedom is something that is very important regardless of what side you are on. Everybody wants to be free. Everyone wants to have their rights acknowledged and protected. Normally, the right wings are the ones that are making sure that the government does not intervene with your rights and your freedom, right? And they're also the ones that tend to make sure that you still have control over your own money and economy, right? So they want to have as little as possible in terms of economic policies, because they want to make sure the status quo, the people in the status quo right now, they have control over their own money, right? So they don't want the government to take control of it. So what does this mean? It means that if the right wing were to create a political policy or an economical policy, they tend to be really good at it because they really value the idea of what economy is, which is minimum effort, maximum output. They really are effective and efficient in terms of creating economical policies that will really, create changes in the status quo itself. So these are people that really want to support private businesses, such as kalau misalnya di Amerika, it's going to be like one of the biggest private institutions in America is the private healthcare. Yang dimana there's like big pharma, and there's also the private asuransi, insurance, yes, the private insurances, and dimana everyone should have the reason why they want to support the private companies is because they believe that everyone should have a free option to choose what they want to buy and what they want to spend their money on, kayak gitu. So that's why they're keeping these private companies awake. They're keeping these insurances and these big corporations is because they provide the option for them to choose whatever they want that is tailored specifically to their own needs. Kayak gitu. So they want to get like tax cuts because they don't want to, they don't want the state to control the money. They want to have a free market. They like capital punishment because, yeah, it is cheaper. They like the oil and they like private healthcare and education. Be, because that's basically how they've been working in the U.S. And yeah, basically it is also very cheaper for the country to do it because if it's like private healthcare or like private education, they don't need to make any kind of changes to the laws. Or if it's like on the oil side or like how they handle the environment, they don't need to spend too much money on it. Okay, gitu. That's why the right wing exists. It is all about conserving the status quo and conserving the the main power of the place, and they want to make sure that the every single so like every single policy that they do end up making tends to be either efficient in terms of how much money they are spending in order to get as much maximum output as possible. That's the benefit of the right wing. It's all about efficiency. But if they're all about efficiency and also all about freedom. Kayak gitu. If it's the left wing, it's all about control and it's all about equality. Kayak gitu. Any questions? No? Then we will proceed. After that, there's the centrist politics. Over here, there are people who classify themselves as centrist or people in the middle. Their main value is compromise. They want to compromise between the right and the left, and they are also known as moderates. And they are also the ones that tend to be the ones that tend to have their policies, pass through parliament because they satisfy both sides and they really compromise the values of both right wing and the left wing. So these are people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The reason why even Joe Biden got elected was because during Donald Trump's what do you call it, reign of terror, presidency. That's the word. During Donald Trump's presidency, what happened was he was like very far right, and like racist, a lot of bad policies, right? But what happened then was, it was during the midterm election atau pas pemilu untuk DPR-nya di United States, right? They what happened was the DPR was suddenly overturned to completely blue, completely Democrats, right? Which is the party that goes against Donald Trump, which then led to the US's longest governmental shutdown, yang dimana just because Donald Trump does not want to sign the policies from the Democrats who are controlling the DPR, the whole government system went on strike. So semua politicians berhenti kerja, and every single part of the every single like governmental institutions, they stopped working. They went on strike. Everything. So like people were not being paid. People just stopped working, and it's just like a big mess for one whole month. Okay. Yes, mogok kerja satu negara. Not satu government, satu pemerintahan. Negaranya was still working fine. So yeah. So that's just how bad the situation was. So that means the Democrats, to avoid this kind of situation, they didn't want to appoint someone that was very liberal. In the off chance they lose the DPR to like very extremist right wing, so they went for someone that is a lot more centrist, such as Joe Biden, to be picked. And a lot of people in the society, especially korban-korban dari governmental shutdown itu, mereka sadar tuh that like, okay, they can't keep on fighting in the parliament. We need someone to make a compromise, and hence why Joe Biden was elected. Kayak gitu.
Yang before sangat Ya,
Yes. So
Lagi mau running lagi.
lumayan. Tapi dengan berubah case luar doang ke sana. But no.
hmm,
Lanjut.
okay. So after that, there is like just making sure I'm being recorded. Okay. So I'm just so other things that you need to know. There are other types of centrists. There are moderate rights, who are people who tend to be swayed by the right wing, such as Colin Powell. And there are like true centrists, which does not exist at the moment. There are also moderate lefts, who are like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who are like moderate left because they have some policies that they enjoy them from both right wing and left wing, kayak gitu. But they tend to be a bit more swayed to the left because they are from the Democratic Party. And in Indonesia per se, we tend to be more on the centrist side in terms of politics. Ideally, ideologically, we are supposed to be in the centrist, as in we have certain values of capitalism, as in we want some level of a free market, but we really control the most important aspects of it. And we still believe in, like freedom, like individual freedom, but we also want them. We also understand that they need to be controlled to a certain extent through the justice system and other kinds of policies, kayak gitu. So we tend to be a bit more in the middle rather than in like far right or far left. But I have an argument that might get me not into LPDP. Okay. Okay, so now here is the overall window. This is the overall window based on like some level of the values and other kinds of ideologies in the status quo. So this is the window: authority, liberty, up and down, economic left, and economic right. And just so you guys know, I named the quadrants specifically in different places. So for the red one, this is where they are authoritarian and they also prefer socialist kind of economy. So these are people that wants to create a government, but they also want equality. And the way that they get the equality is by having this government to enforce the equality. So there's no one above everyone else except for the government. Like ito. And then we have the blue side, which is authoritarian, but they're a bit capitalistic. So this is
Kalau itu komunis, itu
yes, fascist, yes. So yeah, so on the authoritarian and the capital side, the blue area, these are a government that wants to maintain the status quo by maintaining certain levels of hierarchy inside that status quo. So these are governmental systems that want to maintain like certain levels, either some level of discrimination or like any kind of other hierarchies that exists in the status quo itself. Okay? And yeah, after that, on the bottom right, it's the natural hierarchy. They want a hierarchy, but they don't want the government to be in control. So they want to fight for the vacuum of power themselves, normally through capital or anarchy capitalism, or ANCAP. So anarchy capitalism basically means that the world is controlled by money. Whoever has the most amount of money, they're the one that's in control of the world itself. Kayak gitu.
But there is no government.
There is no government. The one that has power is still the one with the wealthy. Yes. And then there is the anarchy side, or the green area, where they both want socialist values and libertarian values. And these want equality, but natural equality. So like everybody is equal and there is no governmental power, and we all just agreed to not fight each other somehow. Kayak gitu. How do they reach this? There's basically the values of anarchy, but like anarchy tends to be a bit contradictory to a certain extent because they don't really know how they're going to establish the equality after the government is gone. They just assume that it will naturally happen out of the goodwill of the people. I might be wrong because I'm not a social student. I'm a physics student, but this is what my understanding is. Okay. So overall, that's how the Windows is. If you can evaluate any kind of ideology and put it based on these kinds of windows somewhere around there. And the reason why I put like Pancasila specifically, or in our side, is specifically on the government for hierarchy, is because our government still acknowledges certain levels of hierarchy in the status quo, and that they will still want to maintain. And this can be all seen from the very first sila, which is Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, which religion by default is a hierarchy that the government wants to maintain. Kayak gitu. So they do want to maintain some kind of hierarchy, and so that's why I would tend to put it like on this side, a bit more onto the authoritative side if I would want to, but then it was blocking the word government hierarchy. So yeah. Now let's talk about the dystopias. The dystopias are all on the pojokan.
Actually,
Yes, the extremes. So let's start with the extreme red, or the communists. So communist value is basically they want a government that that controls the society to create equality. So government for equality is basically just communism, right? So the reason why it's called communism is because they want a specific community to be in control of the country itself. They want to like prioritize the community first, or the community party over the general populace, because they're the one that's controlling that kind of equality for them. Okay?
there's just one.
Mhm.
Committee dari itu diutamakan.
Yes. There's only one communist party, and there might be some times where they make a pseudo party, like in China when they had their election, there was a pseudo party as well. For Russia, there was another party, but not for long. It just they went on vacation, and then and yeah, so and also North Korea, there's no other parties.
Aku bahkan kagak menyebut itu. Kira bakal ada kayak what kind of crazy people make another one?
Yeah, so like North Korea is just like a real communist party, and they really prioritize the communist party itself. Okay. Then we go down. Let's talk. We already talked about anarchy. Just a bit of a reminder. Anarchy just means they don't want a government at all, and they want to create a level of just a general understanding of equality from everyone else. The ANCAP is basically anarchy. They don't want the government, but they want to make sure capitalism is the one that's the strongest. So whoever has the money, they are the ones that are in control. And the top one on the blue area is what we call fascism. Fascism is basically a governmental system, or governmental ideology that says that a group of people that have some kind of uniting feature, be it their race, religion, or anything in combined of everything else, like any kind of like feature that unites them together. They're the ones that are in control, and they want to maintain that specific rights in their country are are also in control of the society and everything else. This can be kind of seen in like most of like Donald Trump's policies and the Project 2025. You guys read that, which is like they want to maintain the control of the far right movement. Kayak gitu. Or in Indonesia, it would look like what Jokowi has been doing lately, right? So they want to maintain a certain family or certain people to maintain in power. Yeah, monarchy is also a fascist, but like monarchy is just specifically a family, a bloodline. But a fascist is like a race or like a kelompok of people, kayak gitu. Not just a family, kayak gitu. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, like the Nazi party, the Nazi party. The Nazi party is basically a fascist party that wants the Armenian race to be the one that's number one, and they believe that anybody that is not just specifically the Armenian race, but anybody that is the Armenian race and physically and mentally capable and non-Jewish.
Oh, you're right. They're really ableist.
So
what is ableist?
Nggak bisa yang mentalnya kena atau yang disable tuh nggak boleh.
Oh iya betul. Makanya banyak yang kabur gak sih, terus kayak tetap dicari dan drama. So
They also believe in eugenics, which is the belief that you need to control the gene pool and cleanse it from bad stuff,
So
bad genes.
yeah, so you marry your cousin just because, or marry the same race.
because you believe in your own blood
Mhm.
line.
Yeah, you want to maintain that bloodline or like a perfect bloodline of like people who are like healthy, anybody or like people without any kind of neurodivergencies or anything like that. You just want to cut that off and make sure the bloodline is as either like pure as or healthy as possible. That's what
Pure
eugenic
blood.
is.
Tapi
Yeah, basically,
good luck with the chromosome.
yeah, pure bloods and Harry Potter are fascist.
Oh yeah. But iya sih masih kayak keluarga black family kan.
Mhm.
KKK.
Yeah, KKK also fascist, and yeah, a lot of. Mhm.
Mormon tapi masih agak beda gak sih? I think. Maksudnya kan join mereka kan bisa random
Dulu
enggak
nggak
random.
bisa, sekarang iya.
Iya.
Dulu ideologinya
Oh,
mereka
kalau
nggak
bahasa
ngerti,
sekarang
ya.
gue kayak dikit
Sekarang
just
bisa.
join.
Hmm.
Sangat percaya. Gereja zaman itu gitu.
So yeah, that's basically that's what the fascist ideology is, and like they want to have a government to maintain a certain hierarchy in the status quo.
Dan kita di situ loh.
Mungkin akan lagi bertingkah.
I would want to put us like closer to authoritarian, but we do that like it's already like there's a lot of stuff that's already baked into our undang-undang and also to our ideology that is slightly leaning to that kind of area. Like, we are capitalistic to also a certain extent, but like we also want authority. So like we can't go too far to the capital side. But we're definitely authoritarian, like near to the like government control. I get though.
I feel like I don't know. After this, like the capital would be apparently our government would be capitalistic, no? Seeing the apa sih namanya a lot of kayak apa sih namanya the bills that they're pushing sama last people yang
I haven't seen the bills.
yang at least kayak pendukungnya Jokowi aja tuh kan those 9 dragons, right?
Mhm.
The rich people, so you know.
Okay. Yeah. But if the 9 dragons are part of the government, then technically they're not the.
No, they're not.
They're not, right? Okay. Then.
Ya, itu problemnya lagi kan balikin ke tangan. Itu jadi nggak jadi juga kan.
Okay. Well, we'll see specifically when we'll talk about the bills a bit later and like how it fits here. Okay. So that's the general ideological policies in the status quo, right? And normally you can fit it inside this kind of window, but there are also like this is just like a very simplified version of like all the values, right? There are still going to be some of them that like might not be specific, like doesn't really fit well in this window as well, but like this in general this can really work out really well just to get like a general vibe of the ideology. Yeah, you get them. Okay, before that, are there any questions before we move on to social movements? Okay, so let's talk about social movements. Social movements are basically just any kind of movement or like any kind of group or organization that wants to create some kind of change in the status quo because they have similar issues or they have a certain issue that they want to tackle, right? So yeah. So there are a few ways to do this. First is the top down, which is basically through leadership or going into the government first and then creating changes. This can be seen a lot in USA specifically, where you are able to go through the government through the Democratic Party, where like a lot of social movements tend to a lot of people who are like in social movements tend to go into the Democratic Party to go into parliament and make changes and policies. For example, like AOC. This doesn't necessarily work in Indonesia. We tried. It did not necessarily work. Partai Buruh is doing well, I guess. Not that well. They're trying. Oh ya, udah masuk. Never mind.
No, they're not. Terus abis itu mereka ngelantik pedofil becer
Okay. Never mind what I said then.
Iya. Dulu kan kakak dulu. Iya, mati dulu. Beda ya?
Beda.
Oh, berarti but they are joining the.
Okay. So yeah, I so like it's kind of harder because Indonesian politics is very dirty and identity based.
I was rooting for the best one.
There's another contoh of like another failure movement that was like really that really wanted to try to go like top down effort, which was the PSI. They used to be very liberal, but now it's Kaisang's little bitch. Yeah.
Little
We saw a lot of activists joining those parties.
Mm. And it's mostly because of the itu aturan koalisinya itu loh. That's why a lot of the people are really adamant in changing hasil DPR-nya itu yang ditungguin tuh hasilnya ya kan. Are they still waiting? What happened? What was the result? Nggak jadi. Okay.
Cuma nggak tahu kalau di undang-undang nggak dikasih tahu tuh loh.
Seharusnya nggak boleh gitu.
Ya iya.
Seharusnya nggak boleh gitu.
Nggak boleh banget ya kalau diem-diemin ya.
Ya.
Seharusnya nggak boleh.
MPR sah aja sah. DPR
Kalau
gitu.
ini waktu si
Apalagi sekarang ada Zoom. Ya, Zoom
Oh,
call.
they just like sah. DPR ketuk palu ada.
hilang.
Sah hilang.
So yeah, it tends to work in healthy democracies. If you want to say USA is a healthy democracy, that is, it's better than Indonesian's democracies to a certain extent. And yeah, I need to charge. Give me a second. So yeah, so normally we want to go to like top-down policies, and the reason why like top-down actually works in the USA specifically is because of lobbying. So they want to be able to press the government to create policies that favor their needs, also known as affirmative actions. A bit more detail later. But this is done by having these movements become like political parties, like the Democratic Party, or they lobby a politician that's already inside the government. Lobbying is legal in USA.
Oh, kita kesannya ilegal tapi tetap dilakukan ya.
You just have to report it. That's it. There's no punishment for that. Setauku. That's why like
Kan mendingan kayak gitu biasanya dibanding kayak kita illegal but they did it like.
And it does help a lot in terms of like social movements, because like a lot of social movements in the USA, they focus more on donations, like the Trevor Act, right, where it's about for trans rights, right? Basically, they would normally like collect donations, and they would lobby a politician to support trans rights, like it.
Oh, karena dia langsung ke atas. Berarti yang kayak kemarin ya gitu. Yang kan penguasa. Tapi maksudnya bukan penguasa patriarchy, but penguasa yang already jajaran.
Yeah, so lobbying is, to a certain extent, helpful, especially if it allows like the smaller movements to show that, look, we are really serious. Look at us here. We'll pay you. Even that's a big help for like all these kinds of politicians to like further support these kinds of things. Is this the rapture? Nah. Okay.
Jangan gitu.
Okay.
It's the rapture.
It's like a random noise.
Stop the T-Rex movie.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, lobbying in the US is legal. I don't know about Indonesia. I'm pretty sure it's not. Counts as collusion, like KKN kan.
Yeah, tapi tetap dilakukan.
Yeah, it's still being done. And that's also the reason why like a lot of companies also back up like politicians in Indonesia. That's a form of lobbying as well, like gitu. So yeah,
S3 loh, dia dokter loh sekarang. Tanya dia dokter.
Cabut lah itu, nggak
Yeah, I know.
sama Kemendikbud.
Kemendikti.
Oh bukan yang Kemendikbud juga.
Kemendikbud kan SMA. Kan?
Nah, Kemendikbud kan pendidikan berarti di bawah, Dikti di bawahnya. Bukan sama, oh ya Kemendikbud boleh Dikti gak sih? Dikti kan.
Setahu aku kalau UNIF gelar-gelarnya itu dari Dikti semua deh.
Nggak tahu.
Mungkin ya. Soalnya kemarin aku jadinya Kemendikbud menganggap tidak.
Aku Kemendikbud bacanya.
Oh ya salah. Sorry.
Okay, our tangents are being recorded.
Oh ya.
Okay.
S3 nasional.
Okay, yeah. So basically, it's basically that's how you're going to do like this kind of top-down policy movement is by creating a political party yourself and entering the government, or like going to political races, or you lobby a politician that's already there. After that, there's the bottom-up movement, or like the bottom-up or grassroots type of tactics for social movements, which is basically they want to change society first, garner support, garner votes, so that they are no longer discriminated and they get the kind of support and everything like that. And yeah, they do marches, socializations, and so on. That way, people are going to be slowly accepting of their ideologies or their issues, creating less discrimination, and creating a voting pool so that politicians can look at them as a legitimate voting bloc to be pandered to. Kayak gitu. Nah, so that's how the grassroots movement works, right? And this also tends to work a lot better in a certain sense in like countries like USA, where the politics is like bipolar, only two parties. That means every voting bloc counts, kayak gitu. But like in Indonesia, especially for like the past election with like 3 parties, it doesn't necessarily work because you need a united front to go against one of the people, kayak gitu. So yeah, this is normally done like via socialization, marches, the normal way that people would normally think about like social movements. That's how they're doing it. It's through the grassroots movements. This tends to also happen a lot in Indonesia, and they stay hidden because government kind of scary.
Tapi giliran dia serius diajak bercanda yang mereka serius malah bercanda nggak jelas kan. Jadi dia ngomong kan, jangan, saya lagi nggak bercanda, mau diketawain gitu kayak dianggap lagi ngejokes. Mereka loh lucu.
I don't know, this country is a joke. Iya sih, aku jadi
Depan
Kadim itu apa? Kepala
dinding dong apa?
yang ngurusin finance sih, apa sih? Nggak, industri iya.
Sama
Ekonomi kreatif pokoknya. Nyokap gue tuh ikut juga kan. Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and E-commerce.
Oh, Kamar Dagang dan Industri Indonesia.
What does Raffi Ahmad know about dagang?
Commerce and Industry. Business,
Dia loh S3. Nggak, dia kan maksudnya dia ada banyak entertainment kan, entertainment, trans jajan, trans sepak bola.
Oh, he owns Trans?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Bukan trans.
Trans.
Not trans TV, but trans TV. Itu Raffi Nagita Stovina.
Oh.
He have like export import juga, tapi I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Mungkin juga industri based on kampus.
Iya, bahkan aku Instagram. Kayaknya kalau itu udah diurusan deh menurutku, kayak mereka udah bagi-bagi IP. Karena mereka dari awal aja Nagita. Raffi juga pintar S3.
Sekali lagi sih sama Raffi. Sekali lagi coba bridge club gitu lah.
Siapa yang mau itu? Terus dia minta sponsor ke dari situ kan? Iya. Kayak mana sih yang mau bukan sponsor ke negara kayak iya dari situ kan kayak
Darah
kayak otak Lanjutkan.
Okay, and the third way a social movement tends to get their way is through terrorism. Nice. No. Okay, so I say terrorism, but most likely it's easier to be said as rebellion. So this tends to be like a last resort for social movements because it is done when the society and government is that corrupted, so it is impossible to speak up in any the protest movements or the top-down movements, and leaving only actions of violence as the only way for the government to hear them. This can be seen as what happened in Arab Spring, where the one that I talked about yesterday, it's basically before in the past, the Arabian countries were mostly controlled by dictators, and then there was a rebellion that happened that took down a lot of those dictators all at once with the help of the United States. They were funded by the United States specifically, which is you need money to fight a corrupt country. So yeah, which is unfortunate, but that's what happened to a certain extent. I still need more information about that because I can't samar-samar. Other kinds of rebellions that did also happen, or that also happened as well, was the Black Panther movement in USA. Yes, that Black Panther movement, where basically the African American community took arms against the government because of the Jim Crow Act, if I'm not wrong, where there was basically, yeah, there was like heavy discrimination, like police brutality that was like very big, where they didn't really attack, they just armed the people. They armed the civilians, kayak gitu. There are other kinds of terrorism as well that does tend to happen for like a lot of other social movements, such as ISIS as well. ISIS ideology makes sense to a certain extent, as in that they want to make sure that the West gets out of the Middle Eastern countries. That's it. Because of all the meddling of that the West has, they fear monger the West so that the West can just stop, doing their stuff in this area kayak gitu.
Tapi kayak aku tuh agak aku nggak tahu, aku baru tahu tujuannya itu kayak kayak selama ini kan ada mungkin media ya, kayak itu kayak membelokkan diri ternyata bukan itu loh, but they do is not that things.
Yeah. Yeah, they want like a caliphate, right? But the reason why they have a lot of support is because of the the Western thingy, the Western interventions that they've done in the Middle East. Kayak gitu. And that's something that's not being covered a lot in media, but like the amount of Western interventions that USA has done, and that's something that's never been highlighted as the reason why ISIS really hates the West, as in they only attack like Western countries, kayak gitu kan, because they're trying to separate the US away from this kind of area.
Amerika, dia bilangnya Amerika, kok kan banyak ibu-ibu. Nunggu si ibu-ibu yang kayak gitu. Terus ini aku kerjain aja gitu, tapi ruining everything.
Yes, and then blame other people. Kamu sih mau bilang kan?
You mean a Karen?
Karen.
Yeah, Karens. Okay, gitu. That's for terrorism. That's why, like, if you guys really look in like throughout media, a lot of people that are labeled as terrorists are actually just rebellions, kayak gitu. Even like in the past, not Pancasila. What was it called? Palestine, right? Palestine was also labeled as a terrorist group, kayak gitu. And even though they are not a terrorist group, they're just rebelling, kayak gitu. Vandalism attacks the place, right? Like facilities, right? But terrorism, they attack in order to instill fear into the public. That's why terror, kayak gitu. Anybody, yeah, anything. It can be people, it can be building, as long as it is there to create fear and. Yes, that's what terrorism is. Vandalism is just, it doesn't really necessarily have any reasons why you're doing it. It can be for like a crime. It could be personally motivated. It could be anything. It doesn't artistic choice. Yes.
Or it could be just me
You just want to do that.
Could have been an accident.
Like, according to my, what is it, junior high school headmaster, kalau aku minta tanda tangan ke alma materku itu vandalisme.
Mm.
Why itu?
Kayak aku tuh alma materku tuh ditandatangani pemain IBL, soalnya itu pemainnya aku suka, karena anak basket kan. Sebenarnya itu vandalisme, kok harus di bleach itu ini tanda tangannya.
What?
Did you?
Iya,
Oh.
soalnya aku dikeluarin dari sekolah anjing.
Anjing jangan sini dong, kita orang baik-baik ya kan, we're good people. We support that.
Itu, aku bingung, kenapa vandalisme?
Mungkin dia iri dengki.
Mungkin ya.
Mungkin anaknya juga
Ini
pengen
di malu.
bleaching anjay.
Okay. Any other questions regarding like how social movement works?
Tapi terrorism goals-nya other than inflicting fear itu apa ya?
Yeah, they're inflicting fear for a reason, kan ya? So most likely it's to overthrow the government or to have their demands heard. Kayak gitu. Their demands heard. Didengar, pengen didengar kayak gitu. There was another terrorist group in I forgot. I want to say Tony the Tiger, but that's a brand of cereal. It's something Tiger or something Tony. I forgot. But like, it's just it's another terrorist movement kayak gitu that did something. I forgot. And there's also another thing called the Brotherhood of something. I forgot as well. There's a lot. If you go, this tends to happen a lot more in like Middle Eastern countries because ever since the Arab Spring happened, there's been a vacuum of power, and therefore terrorist groups start coming up out of nowhere. Kayak gitu.
Is this still happening?
It's still, yeah, kinda. Soon?
I don't know. It's probably Australia atau
Aku pilih Australia.
Oh, kata juga. Australia, ada lagu-lagunya. Please,
Okay.
find my kangaroo. Please record it and send it to us. Like, I'm gonna battle with kangaroo, and then you put
I'm gonna die.
dengan muscles and then ototnya itu loh, paling udah kayak wanjay, kecil.
Okay.
That would be a great battle.
Okay, I'll move on, okay? So let's talk about the process of equality. So basically what they want is basically just equality, right? And this can work in like any kind of social movements. But in general, the way you get equality is through empowerment by providing equal rights and opportunities to the people that are afflicted. Then you can get acknowledgement, which is if you like are already equal in terms of like power and ability and opportunities, then you need them to acknowledge you so that they don't discriminate you like either in terms of like smaller discriminations such as like teasing or like job opportunities, stereotypes and whatnot. You need this acknowledgement to be treated as a equal human being. And then after that, that's when you get equality and not domination. Now, please, when you guys are going for social movement motions, you do not want to create domination, which means that if you're talking about the feminist movement, you're not trying to create a female nation. Okay, you're not trying to create a matriarchy. You're trying to create equality, no archy at all, right? Be very careful because a lot of what tends to happen a lot is that like they argue of like how to a lot of people, especially early on, they tend to argue of like how to completely destroy or get shut down the other side. What you want is equality in the end of the day, right? Not complete domination. Kayak gitu. And this is also to prevent other kinds of fear or feeling threatened by the opposition. That way, they don't retaliate on you once you achieve your goal of equality. So this can be seen as like how the people in America, for example, retaliated against the Abortion Act, Roe v. Wade, right? Roe v. Wade was seen as a threat, therefore it was taken away. So you want to try your best to portray yourself as a victim and not an aggressor. Kayak gitu. Okay? Okay. So how are you going to achieve this kind of equality? Is going to the thing that I've been saying called affirmative actions. And this slide here is basically explaining the different kinds of policies that might happen. There are two called blanket policies and affirmative actions, and why affirmative actions is better. So a blanket policy, so let's start with the problem, right? For example, there's a societal problem in the middle, right? Where over here there is the minority and over here is the majority, right?
Majority the orange one.
Yeah, the orange ones, yes. So imagine if that is the issue and they have like this kind of level of power, right? A blanket policy is a policy that helps everyone. For example, if there is a policy, misalnya in America, where mereka ngasihnya universal basic income to everyone. So that means the people who are poor are going to get better, but the rich are still going to be richer. So that means the gap is still there. You're not going to reach equality in that sense. And that's why you need affirmative action, which is very specific to that minority. You want equity, not just equality, right? Okay? So once you get this affirmative action, that's when you are able to be equal to per se. And this is exactly why in the queer community there are things like one of the most simplest policies is which is the unisex bathrooms, right? Gender neutral bathrooms, yes, exactly, that's the word. Thank you. Yeah, so the gender neutral bathrooms, where people who identify as not binary are able to enter those kinds of bathrooms. It's very simple, but they feel like it's like a special treatment for them. But in reality, they don't have a place to go. You want to make them equal as everybody else. Therefore, you provide them with this special bathroom per se. That's a simple explanation of what affirmative actions. Other things of a form of affirmative actions are like reparations, which is giving compensation to people who have been discriminated in the past. Or it could also be like, it's like other kinds of like reparations could be like in the forms of money or like policies or like any kind of thing that can help them and be empowered. Kayak gitu. And yeah, in Indonesia per se, we tend to have a lot more blanket policies, but there are some affirmative actions, especially when it comes or concerns religion. They tend to have a lot of like affirmative actions to help get religious freedom for everyone, and that's where we mostly have affirmative actions. The moment it becomes political, that's a different issue. They don't really go for like affirmative actions. Exactly what happened with OPM, for example. The reason why, like in Papua, right, the reason why it's becoming very separatist is because they need very specific policies that is very tailored to their culture, kayak gitu. Yang dimana kita tuh dari dulu tuh cuma ngasihnya Japanese policies ke mereka, which is not really in line with their values or how they work in that kind of area, kayak gitu.
They have a really different culture. Mereka kayak
Tapi aku saya kayak konspirasinya sih yang bikin aku kayak kepikiran juga.
Apa konspirasi?
Oh, I don't know, from what I heard, it's like mereka tuh kayak belum ready gitu kan. That's why kayak ketika belum ready, but you can see the edukasinya belum sebagus itu. That's why kayak ketika dikasih pun ada OPM-nya. Jadi kayak, tahu gak sih kayak ketika mau diberikan they tend to work in Freeport, right? Nah mereka tuh terbiasa kayak I don't need to do much hard work ya. Aku cuma tinggal gini terus kayak aku dikasih aja kayak mereka kan pemerintah itu they get money from that meskipun mereka dapat itu dikit. Padahal kan mereka bisa dapat banyak gitu loh. That's why mereka tuh nggak yang hardworking banget gitu loh. Kalau kita tend to work dulu baru kamu gini. Kalau mereka tuh not that kind of like.
I know. That's what you. I don't know. That's what. Yeah. But that's what you heard kan, tapi that's not what happened di Papua. There's a lot of educated people there juga. Dan apa sih namanya yang kamu bilang itu cuma segelintir kayak apa sih namanya suku-suku yang mungkin masih apa very primitive and stuff like that. Tapi mereka pun juga nggak mau ditindas gitu loh. Yang terjadi di sana itu there's a lot of apa military yang make sure mereka nggak separate. Padahal tuh mereka cuma mau voicing their concern about this. Kenapa apa sih namanya kenapa kita nggak punya daerah istimewa atau kenapa kita nggak punya set rules yang tailor to kita, padahal kan kita yang udah diambilin tenaganya, kita diambilin resource-nya, kita diambilin semuanya, tapi kita nggak dapat apa-apa dari itu gitu loh. Therefore juga education-nya tuh nggak maju gara-gara itu. Makanya kenapa di Jogja tuh banyak banget orang-orang Papua yang kesini buat ngambil edukasi so that they can go back there and educate other people as well and make the movement more like noticeable. Makanya apa sih kota yang paling mereka tuju tuh Jogja karena kita kan juga kotanya aktivis kan. So yeah, that's not conspiracy-nya tuh baseless banget. It's like you know they're gugu gaga barbaric kayak maksudnya enak so. Yeah, they're really smart. Apalagi they have a really great relationship with Papua New Guinea juga, and they have like really good apa relationship with the US juga. Oh, so the education is really. Ya, nah, yang konspirasi atau yang konspirasi that you are going to tell me is yang kayak, oh mereka lebih pingin kayak Papua Nugini yang dibantu oleh US daripada kita, which I don't know if that's true, tapi kayak I can see why, karena mereka nggak merasa dihargai kan, jadi mungkin kayak ya udah sama Amerika aja daripada sama Indonesia gitu. Iya, tapi kayak kita juga nggak mau bantuin mereka gitu loh, which I don't get.
Based on Kak Dewan itu kan susah banget, jadi aku nggak tahu, jadi when I saw the video kayak dia sebenarnya yang helikopter terus ada temannya dari kota yang lain gitu, mereka kan pengen kan biasanya kalau sana memang tipe pesawatnya bukan pesawat yang
komersial gitu kan,
emang yang just 2-3 orang doang dan itu tuh kayak itu udah yang kayak kalau dari airport supposed to be a safe place itu kan enggak kan masih tembakin ya sama tuh makanya saya kata tadi tuh so scripted.
I know
Jadi kayak konspirasi antara yang US could be right karena ya mereka dapat itu dari mana
ya itu juga maksudnya kayak apa sih namanya mereka kayak gitu itu ya karena mereka bertahun-tahun di surveillance sama militernya kita. Do you know how many pendeta yang dibunuh? Like that's not nice. Kayak apa sih? Of course they're going to retaliate kalau kita kayak gitu kan. I feel like yang di OPM itu tuh I don't know. Emang kita kayak
people yang kayak dia tuh ada pengen itu kan ada juga gini jadi kayak dan mereka ada sumber daya yang besar banget yang lucunya sampai Indonesia nggak mau ngelepas juga.
Tapi sumber dayanya pun mereka nggak punya akses, itu loh masalahnya tuh.
Tapi they get little bit benefit tuh. Jadi itu yang membuat mereka tuh sebetulnya why less likely to terbiasa. Saya nggak tahu. Tapi another one, jadi bude gue pernah kerja di sana juga. Itu tuh mereka tuh kebiasaan tuh yang nggak mau kerja keras gitu loh karena mereka kan punya emas, terus mereka tuh kayak emang everyone get money easy gitu, nggak easy money, more like that's why harga itu mahal. Jadi kayak they don't nggak terbiasa dengan hard working itu lagi, makanya sering boros dan apa-apa. Kalau misalnya sama aku pun juga gitu nyanyinya gini-gini kayak mereka tuh trying to spend money without right-nya, that's why it's like
I don't know. I feel like that is very racist idea kan, karena apa sih namanya gak tau ya teman-teman kayak orang Papua nggak kayak gitu, and kalaupun yang mereka kayak gitu pun because di sana kan nggak ada dan di sana mahal banget, di sini murah. Of course they're going to buy the alcohol here daripada di sana, dan di sana tuh mahal juga gara-gara orang-orang Amerika. Maksudnya kayak there's a lot of orang-orang luar yang di sana yang nggak kerja di sana harusnya kan, tapi kan kayak di Bali sekarang harga lokal juga udah nggak ada kan gara-gara a lot of people from outside of the region tuh datang ke sana. That's why kayak di Hawaii juga kayak gitu, kayak that's why kita need more regulation to that. Makanya jangan you know No, makanya we need to put resources.
Kenapa sih kayak rumor yang selama aku dengar? They do like kayak ada sisi pemerintah, sisi mereka.
I get what the government say juga kayak apa sih namanya? Maksudnya orang-orang yang kerja di government tuh kayak takut gitu karena emang mereka apa sih namanya udah ini tuh their last resort aja gitu loh. Mereka tuh di tahap untuk social movement itu yang di last resort, dan kita tuh harusnya nggak sampai kayak gitu. Maksudnya kayak kita pemerintahnya tuh harusnya nggak biarin mereka sampai the last resort. Harusnya kita dari dulu tuh yang waktu Jokowi pertama kali di Papua tuh, I thought we are going to finally have a sit down and talk about it. Tapi kayak but no, what happened tuh nggak, dan mereka kecewanya jadi double kan jadinya. So that's what itu sih. Orang people yang di Jogja juga pada marah-marah.
Okay. I also have one last point regarding regarding the idea kayak mereka tuh nggak mau dibantu, ya kan? That's like one of the biggest argumentations that like a lot of people tend to push onto the OPM movement, right? It's not necessarily like that. It's just bantuannya emang nggak sesuai yang mereka inginkan tuh loh. And like even if mereka dapat banyak these kinds of benefits, like all these kinds of benefits, like economy or like any kind of like or like infrastructure or something like that, if it's not something that they want, then who are we to judge tuh loh sebenarnya, karena kayak emang kebutuhannya mereka. That's the same kind of mentality that colonizers had on Indonesia tuh loh, that they were trying to help us out by making us a bit more modern per se, kayak gitu kan. Yeah, but we were happy back then. Yeah, so like if it's that what if even if it's like amongst a hardcore yang orang-orang pikir these kinds of conspiracy theories say, which is not necessarily true, it's not our place to impose our values and what we perceive our benefits onto them, because that's exactly what the colonizers did to us kayak gitu. And other things that I do want to note is like I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something very profound, and now it's gone.
Please cari lagi di otakmu. Pasti ada di belakang otakmu,
Yeah.
di depan.
So,
Okay, ketika Ocha, Ais kayak
it's gone. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's gone. Tapi gitu. Basically kayak we shouldn't be imposing our own values kayak gitu.
And like apa sih?
Wait, I remember now. Oh yeah. Also,
jangan sampai kamu hilang dulu ya.
the most of the most of the benefits that we're sending, especially for like the people who are in the governmental system, are people who originate from Java. And they don't necessarily understand the values of the people that they're trying to represent over there, and that's something that is the misrepresentation is also the biggest reasons why these movements exist kayak gitu. They're not being heard. The people who are being sent to govern are not from their own people, and the help that they're giving is not something that they want per se kayak gitu. It's not so therefore it's not like their rights and their needs are not being fulfilled by our government, hence why this whole thing happens kayak gitu.
Yeah, and I hate kayak orang-orang bilang, oh mereka baik-baik, kan kita udah baik-baik ini, lihatlah banyak uang yang kita taruh ke sana, tapi
Emang ada pasti ada.
there's a lot of people yang kayak bilang, they're so ungrateful, kayak kita udah kasih banyak bantuan, kayak kita udah alokasi ini ke sana gitu kan.
Jawa sentris tuh.
I know, which apa sih namanya, which sometimes itu kayak pas agresif banget karena bantuannya itu emang gak sesuai, dan bantuannya itu sangat dikit, that you can't even say that itu bantuan gitu loh, kayak aku mau kasih kata apa gitu loh, kayak thank you for the bare minimum gitu loh.
Tapi buat ini kalau misalkan kita didengar tuh they want freedom, not darah istimewa lagi, tapi kayak
ya soalnya udah capek, dan dulu tuh dia pinginnya tuh darah istimewa, dulu tuh pinginnya apa namanya policy ya otonomi sih, kayak dan Aceh aja dikasih, Jogja aja dikasih, kenapa kita nggak dikasih gitu loh. Padahal mereka tuh bener-bener yang paling unik di Indonesia tuh pas mereka.
So yeah, if Indonesia wants to maintain Papua under the logic of kesatuan Indonesia kayak gitu, and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, then we need to give them certain levels of autonomy kayak gitu. And that's like either like a daerah khusus atau gimana. I don't know. I believe in the government, as I am going to probably be in LBJP already, just to make sure that this is being recorded and my stances are unclear and vague. Thank you.
You need to say your name.
Exactly. At the very least, you have the government on your side at the and the blue bloodline. I don't have anything. Yeah. Okay. Tapi ya, gitu sih. Like if we're going to talk about Papua in depth. Also, like yeah, the same people. You know who else also said that, oh, we already gave you help. We're here to help you out. You know who also said that? Japan. And Cahaya, ya Japan ke Indonesia pasti jajah. Jepang, Nippon, Cahaya Asia.
Oh iya,
Nippon ini
Nippon.
ada 3A apa gitu.
Iya, iya. Aku dulu disuruh ngapalin itu anjing, apa kita hafalin lagi penjajah itu? Asu.
It's relevant. There's still a lot of things, right? So we need to, if we really want to like solve the issue in Papua, we need to approach it as an Indonesian, not as a colonial state. Kayak gitu. Kayak gitu menurutku. That's the biggest thing that has to be discussed in further to resolve the issue in Papua for Indonesia's sake. Okay.
Yang di Hawaii juga nggak gitu, memang separatis itu.
Tapi tahu-tahu yang mirip kayak Papua Nugini kasusnya Habibie. Dia kan menyetujui Papua Nugini berpisah kan. Terus kayak orang Papua Nugini mau, tapi Jawa, Sulawesi, Kalimantan, Sumatera, they don't agree with that. Maksudnya that's the thing that could happen, mungkin kayak karena itu nggak diberikan lagi kayak gitu.
Ya mereka ya udah kalau nggak mau berikan itu, at least berikan something gitu loh.
You need to give them affirmative action. Okay, back to the thing. Let's go. Okay. Hi, go ahead.
Berarti equity menghasilkan equality.
Equity menghasilkan equality, yes.
Tapi kalau equality tidak menghasilkan equity.
No. Okay, so let's talk about the difference of dynamics between politics versus government, right? So this is basically the topic of like election specifically, right? Election and then after the election. So when you are in the election, if you're not in Indonesia per se, you have to be very party oriented, as in you are supposed to be someone that is partisan, focusing on your party, and you want to get as much votes in the election, right? But the moment that you become inside the government, when you're working with other parties, you need to be as bipartisan as possible, and you need to be able to compromise in order to make sure that you are society oriented. Okay, gitu. And the reason why you want to be able to do like this and be as bipartisan as possible once you're in the parliament is because you want to get votes from other politicians. If you're just focusing on your party, the other parties will not vote for you. They won't support your policies. Therefore, your policies nggak bakal jalan dan kamu dibilang nggak kerja sama rakyat. Kayak gitu. But on the other side, when it's like election time, when you're focusing on repping your party, then you just need to be very partisan. You need to represent your party in order for the people that support your party to feel like they're being represented. And therefore, they want to get votes in the election. Regardless, in both sides of both politics and also in government, you want to maintain power. This is via votes and societal support or votes. Via votes and societal support or votes. Daniel, you wrote weird. Okay, without votes, they lose their jobs, and but without societal support, no matter what policy they make, it won't be followed at all, right? This is exactly the main issue in Indonesia's politics right now, is that the societal support is almost non-existent, especially for the people who are a bit more privileged per se in terms of being educated. But on the other end, people who kind of need the government to work and get support from the government, they are still giving support to the government. Yeah. So yeah, that's why like the policies yang DPR kemarin not really happen yet per se for us at the moment, right? Because they still want societal support and they can't get continuously be rejected by society. Kayak gitu. We don't want to cause an uprising, right? And yeah. And yeah, that's basically what the difference is in the politics versus government. When you're in the part, so when you're on the election, you focus on your own party and your coalition. When you're inside the government, you start doing compromises. That's exactly what happened with Jokowi. The moment he entered the presidency, he started compromising too much.
Daniel Ahmad.
Hey,
That's already
okay, true.
So, nim, aku nggak tahu nim berapa.
Kan dia udah lulus.
Well, still can be dicabut ijazahnya.
Don't.
Why are you?
Why are you threatening me? I'm doing a good job as a coach, right?
Yes.
Why am I being threatened? Please do not use this audio as blackmail. Whoever hear this in the future, after you hear this, please burn it.
Biasa aja stand
Okay.
and burn.
And it's done.
Oh, ada thank you slide-nya.
Because I am not grateful.
Ah, good.
But yeah, that's basically for politics and the government. After that, there is law. In terms of law, this is just going to be a light explanation. Law basically has a few principles that needs to be followed. The first one is when the crime happens. These are so during when the crime happens, there are two principles that need to be followed, not just one, it's two, and when the crime happened. So it's called the mens rea and also actus rea. You need to be able to prove to the adjudicators that the person that is evil or liable has evil intent or has evil action. So when you're ever trying to prove that anybody is liable or anybody that is evil in the status quo, it doesn't have to be evil, just be liable is enough. You can prove it by saying that they have evil intentions or they have done something bad. For example, when we're talking about the economy per se and we want to punish the companies, then you can say that the companies have an evil intent, as in they are money oriented, they have a motive to do something bad, and the action that they did was something as bad as maybe like an economical bubble or monopoly or whatnot, right? That's how you're going to prove that we can punish people who do monopolies or the people who do economical bad stuff, like Elon Musk stuff, and so on. And so on and so forth, right? So that's what you can try to prove. When you're trying to prove whoever is responsible in the debate, you need to prove those two things, okay?
Harus today.
Dua-duanya. The evil intent and evil action.
If it's one of it not recommended.
Then it is questionable whether it's justifiable or not. Sometimes it's enough for action, and you can say that like the evil intent was neglect, atau kayak they were not being responsible, which is fair. Or you can also say that they had an evil intention, even though the action was not there. The evil intention is still something that is very punishable. You can argue it to a certain extent on that thing. It really depends on case per case. But you do tend to need to explain both sides, the evil intention and the evil action. And then there is the law itself. During the court itself, there is a principle that we call presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So this means that everyone is innocent in the court of law unless they are proven guilty after the court. So here that means that this is there to have what we call a fair trial. A fair trial means that you are able to give this person the most thorough trial that is possible by taking every single evidence to prove that this person is guilty. Kayak gitu. And that's why it's very, and the reason why it's important for you to have this presumption of innocence and to have this fair trial is because the moment that you lose the fair trial, that's the moment when people don't trust the governmental system, they don't trust the law, they don't trust the law enforcement, Therefore, they won't go to the law. This is as simple as looking at rape victims, for example, when they don't go to the law because they feel like they're not going to get the justice that they deserve. Other than that, there are also cases of vigilantism, where people take action into their own hands rather than prosecuting them into the law, which leads to even more crime and even more chaos. So those are some of the reasons why it's important to have a fair trial, so that you can show to the world, to your society, that look, you can trust the law. The law will always be the one there for those who are just. Okay, gitu. So that's the importance of a fair trial, so people are willing to go and report the crimes in the very first place, because they can trust the law enforcement. Then we have what we call the punishments. Punishments has three criteria to make it an ideal punishment, plus one that is debatable. So it's round four, but three yang wajib. So the first one is that you have to make sure that this punishment is able to be equal. You're not trying to punish them too much, because if you make the punishment too far or too extreme, what happens is that people won't trust the law, because you feel like it feels like it is very discriminatory, and you can't and it becomes very and people will feel like they are going to be the victim of the law, right? So you can't really be that you can't really make a very excessive punishment, because it doesn't really create, because it's simply not fair. And yeah, they won't the people who receive the punishment won't feel like they deserve this punishment in the very first place, which also causes retaliation later down the line. Other than that, there is compensation. You need to be able to compensate to the people who are the victim in that status quo, either in the form of financial, or compensation in terms of security by putting this person in prison, so on and so forth. Any kind of compensation that makes the victim per se like feel compensated for the damages that they have been inflicted by the culprit. That's something that is fair, right? Next, it is deterrence. If the punishment does not make people feel scared to break the law, then it is not a good punishment. So you need to be able to make sure that that there is a deterrence effect to prevent further crimes in the future. This means that you don't want to have, like, for example, fines, right? Fines are not necessarily effective, especially when you're talking about rich people, because now a crime just becomes viable, right? You need another form of punishment that's not just fines. You can talk about time, or imprisonment, or like any kind of community service, and so on. That's how you can create a deterrence effect, to make sure that these people, so that make sure the people who are doing these kinds of crimes feel like they are scared of doing this in the future. Okay. And the last point in terms of law is the punishment has to be able to rehabilitate. This is debatable. On, like, there's a lot of debates on whether or not a criminal has the right to be rehabilitated, but there's a lot of argument that says that it's good to have rehabilitation, especially because you want to prevent this person from doing the crime again in the future. Also, you want to make sure that when they enter society again, they are not a threat, right? So you want to make sure that society can accept them and feel safe, and not feel like scared because there is like a predator on the loose. And that's basically how the law works in three separate sections. When the when the crime happens, you need to prove mens rea, actus rea. When the trial happens, you need to prove the fair trial and the presumption of innocence. And then when the punishment is executed, you need to be able to provide an equal, or like fair punishment that compensates, that compensates, that deters, and optionally rehabilitates. Okay, gitu. That is overall the presentation. Question times. Let's go.
Appreciation.
Woo! Go Daniel! Woo!
You can ask someone else to get
I'm fine. I like cheering myself.
So, I was wondering, buat rehabilitation itu dari semua kayak socialism, like leftist party itu lebih from capital,
Mhm.
the right wing wants capital punishment rather than impact.
Mhm.
Kamu belum ngerti kayak ganti-ganti tuh kayak
Apa?
matamu.
Oh,
Ya.
sorry.
It's okay. Aku juga kayak, why? I'm kayak, oke.
No.
Aku juga tahu
Yeah.
juru pembicara kita.
Yeah, right?
Yes, right. Exactly. The left wants rehabilitation because they want to provide equal opportunity to everyone, which also means that equal opportunity to culprits who have already done their time, their due justice. They deserve a second chance to re-enter society. But when it comes to the right wing, they feel like they don't. It's not their right. It is something that they have to work towards. Kayak gitu. Any other questions? Oh, you've been quiet for a while. Huh? You okay? Okay. Okay. You have any questions? No? Okay.
How do you feel, boom boom shakalaka?